And lots of data are sloshed through in this new week from the United States, with job creation numbers from September top of the table. Non-farm payrolls, or MFP, stands out as the main event of the week and could seal the deal on the Federal Reserve's expected tapering announcement. U.S. federal officials James Bullard and Kenneth Montgomery are also set to speak later today. Let's head to London, where we are joined by FXTM Senior Research Analyst Lukman Otunuga. Good morning, Lukman. It's good to have you bright and early here on the shore in the city of London. It's good to see you again, my friend. Let's talk about China's Evergrande. How grand is this problem? It's in the news again. Help me to understand why trading in the shares of this company was suspended on the request of the company itself. What's going down?
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, not a great way to kick off the final quarter of 2021 for Evergrande. This company remains in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Shares in the troubled property giant have been suspended due to unofficial reports that a rival is set to take a majority stake in its property service arms. So far, no official announcements have been made, but it looks like markets are waiting for initial official news before anything big happens. But, despite the Shanghai being closed for the National Day holiday in China, we saw the Hong Kong collapse like a house of cards. It's down over 2%, given the uncertainty now. We already know that Evergrande has already missed two key debt repayments for the deadlines. It's struggling to avoid a default amid crackdowns in Beijing. At the same time, the outlook remains gloomy, especially when factoring how its liabilities are roughly 2% of China's GDP. So things are not looking too good right now, but I think everyone's waiting for the official announcement in regards to the rival stakeholders and the property service ATM to be released. So
look, man, how was Evergrande popping up in the month of September, just as we're rolling up the month and the third quarter, so not so good for market sentiment. Tell me about drivers. What are the key levers, or what they call the playbook for traders focusing on October as the start of the final quarter of the year, whether this will be a better month and a better quarter?
September was a rough and rocky month for global markets. We had the combination of taper talks, inflation expectations, rate hike prospects, all, bouncing with each other, and it really weighed heavily on sentiment. If you look at the S&P 500, it closed negative, and this was a theme that we saw across global equity markets for September. Now, as the first month of Q4 kicks off, I believe that the major themes are going to be taper expectations, inflation, of course, economic data. We have to keep in mind that the idea of one of the largest central banks in the world slowly pulling back support for markets, I'm talking about the Federal Reserve, is a big deal, especially when we saw those extraordinary gains last year, especially in equity markets, were based on central banks across the world enforcing unprecedented measures. So it's all about the taper talks and economic data. I think if inflation fears remain a key theme and taper expectations intensify, this is going to really weigh heavily on stock markets, and it could be party over for equity bulls, especially in the US. Other themes that I believe are likely going to impact sentiment, of course, are going to revolve around oil prices. The amazing appreciation in oil prices, and whether we're going to see $100 before the year concludes. Of course, COVID-19 and the vaccine developments, and most importantly, economic data from not only the US, but also other major economies across the globe.
Okay, so we're dealing with Evergrande through the month of September, now stepping into October. Here we are starting the month of October with the Pandora box being opened by Pandora Papers. A group of investigative journalists have already now opened that. So obtained 111.9 million confidential documents. The Pandora Papers forms 14 separate legal and financial services firms, which expose how the world's ultra-wealthy, the powerful government officials, and other elites conceal trillions of dollars from tax authorities, prosecutors, and others from Africa and elsewhere in the world to developing. So what do we know about these? The documents show former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair and his wife saved around $422,000 by using an offshore company to purchase an almost $9 million office in London's Marylebone area that was partially owned by the family of a Bahraini minister. Czech Prime Minister Andrej Babiš, who is currently running for re-election, moved, quote, $22 million through offshore companies to buy a lavish estate on the French Riviera in 2009.